Today, my guest is Krista Testani. Krista is a multifamily real estate investor with Sharpline Equity, which is a syndicator. And today, we're going to talk with Krista about the challenges surrounding scaling your business. But first, a quick reminder, if you like the show, please let us know. You can like, share, or subscribe. And also, you can leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you'd like to see how attractive our guests are, please be sure to check out our YouTube channel, and that's Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Krista. Welcome to CREPN Radio.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Well, I'm really looking forward to talking with you, especially about scaling your business and specific with multifamily. But before we jump into that, if you could take a minute and just share with the listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into real estate.
Sure, absolutely. I started out actually practicing law, and I did that for about 10 years, but I had some warning signs along my journey that it was probably not the right industry for me because I kept switching specialties. And I just couldn't find a niche in that industry that I really had a passion for. And so I want to say around 2007, I actually decided to quit cold turkey. I quit cold turkey. Not many people, I would not recommend doing that. But I floundered for a couple of years, and in 2009, my husband had been whispering in my ear for a couple of years that he really wanted to get into real estate in some way, shape, or fashion. And he was a retired fireman at the time. And we partnered up with some of his other fireman buddies who had a construction background, and we started to buy distressed homes on Long Island. In case you haven't realized, I'm from Long Island. That accent's coming through, I'm sure. And we started buying distressed homes and rehabbing them and flip them. So that was my introduction into real estate. About a couple of years in, I realized I wanted to scale the business, but I didn't really feel like I can do that by buying single family homes and flipping. And in 2012 is when I got into multifamily. In 2011, I ended up getting involved in a mentorship program. And for about a year, I was involved in that program. And that was my introduction into multifamily.
Got it. So you kind of started down the flipping road there. And
I did, yes.
And it sounds like your timeline there, you were probably buying right, as they say. 2009, I'm thinking it was still kind of the depths of the low point there as far as pricing, as far as volume of availability and that.
It was. Absolutely. Yeah, there was a consistent pipeline of foreclosed assets on Long Island, a consistent flow of that. And so for a couple of years, we did really well. But we started seeing that pipeline dry up as we got closer to 2011. There was a lot more competition. A lot more companies jumped into that game. We also noticed that the banks, at least on Long Island, got into the rehab business. And instead of just selling them as a distressed foreclosed asset, they actually started rehabbing them and then selling at market value. So the handwriting was on the wall, and that's when I knew I wanted to make a move. Another reason I wanted to make a move.
Yeah, it's no fun when the bank becomes your competition there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, let's talk about that switch. So you realized that you wanted to do something different, and part of that thinking was that a scale related thought, or was it just more of a recognition of that the flips weren't going to continue to work like they had worked?
Both, absolutely both. And like I said, I saw the handwriting on the wall, and that led me to the thought process: how am I going to scale this business given what's going on in the market, with the pipeline drying up and the competition getting stiffer? So both of those reasons led me to research and figure out what I wanted to do next. And again, getting involved in this mentorship program, I saw the opportunity that multifamily acquisitions would provide. And I did see it as a vehicle to scale. But interestingly enough, getting into it, the reason I wanted to get into it was scale the business, but I have learned, now that I'm in it for a number of years, I really didn't do the things I needed to do from the outset to scale. And that's one of the things that I really want to share with people so that they learn from me is the mistakes I made early on that prevented me from doing what I wanted to do from the very beginning, which was to scale my business. So I really, I tripped along the way, and but I've come a long way since then, and I've certainly learned some things.
Well, I was going to say, I think there was something I was listening to or reading the other day. It was just talking about, in order to go forward, you've got to be willing to make those mistakes. So I would think that while that anybody listening to this is going to benefit from your experience, and if they take them to heart, they wouldn't have to go repeat those. But the fact that you were willing to go and try speaks volumes to your want to get there kind of thing. I think is kind of what I've recognized. So let's talk about this. What are some challenges that you or some mistakes, however you want to characterize these, that you made along the way, or that you would recommend that
People do
investors?
differently.
Yeah, exactly.
Things that you should do differently. From the very beginning, lots of people come into real estate investing not necessarily having any experience in the industry. So you're really learning along the way. And what I only realized very recently that you need to do from the beginning, regardless of your background, and for a lot of people, it's going to be stepping out of your comfort zone immediately. And that's something I did not do. I was not willing to do it. I chose not to do it. And that is, you need to be a marketer. This business, I categorize it as a micro and a macro business. Okay, your micro business is finding the deals, underwriting the deals, buying the deals, raising the money for the deals. Okay, and then managing the deals. We are syndicators as well as sponsors and operators. That's the micro business. The macro business is your company, your holding company. Sharpline Equity is our macro business. And I didn't work both of those businesses at the same time. I worked the micro business. I worked on, creating my infrastructure, learning about underwriting, learning about networking with the brokers, vetting the managers, underwriting the deal, managing. Obviously, I needed to do all of those things to have a successful multifamily acquisition business, but I paid no attention at all to the macro. And had I done that from the beginning, like other people did, I know other colleagues of mine that started out at the same time that were willing to step out of their comfort zone from the beginning, they scaled much quicker. I want to say I had zero scaling success in the beginning because I did not do that. And when the people, I look back and I see my colleagues who did that from the beginning, and I was looking at them like they were nuts, holding themselves out, marketing, sharing information as if they were somewhat of experts in the field. And I looked at them quite judgmentally, like, how can they be doing this so early on? You need to gather experience. You need to have some credibility before you go out there and market. I was wrong. I was flat wrong. They were right, and they're ahead of me because of it. But, I'm ready to catch up to them. But it is really something that I recommend people do from day one.
So let's talk about how you would recommend they do that.
Sure. So the marketing, it's all about marketing, right? So what are the steps that you can take to market yourself from the very beginning? Obviously, you can, and I'm not a fan of holding oneself out as an expert ever. I really think that you can be well-versed in an area. There's always room to learn. So I would use that word expert lightly. But what you can be doing is putting yourself out there as someone in the industry and sharing the knowledge as you learn it. It's fine not to say that you're an expert in something, but it's great to share the information as you learn it, share the knowledge, share your experiences. And what you're doing is you're slowly building the reputation of your company. And you're taking who's ever listening, whoever you're marketing to, along this journey with you. And the more you know, the more confidence you're exuding, the more credibility you have as you go along on this journey of marketing yourself. But you're planting seeds. The bottom line is you're planting seeds very early on, and you're slowly watering those seeds every season. And then when it's time to do what you need to do for a particular deal, like bring in that investor money or bring in those network partners or network with those individuals that could bring you the deals, the seeds have been planted. You've been watering them for months or possibly a year or two, and you start reaping the rewards of that instead of, starting out on square one when you have the deal. That's what I did. I wasn't willing to start the process of marketing until the deal was in front of me. That's putting incredible pressure on yourself to start the marketing process when you have a deal that you're looking to get into and possibly close within the next 60 to 90 days.
Right. Fuse is lit. Now go market.
Oh, now go marketing, gain that credibility and traction.
Yeah.
I really made the job so difficult for myself because I wasn't willing to, again, step outside that comfort zone from the beginning.
It's so funny. I'm listening to you and I'm just going, this is, I could talk to you for hours about this. And I've equated it to what I would call horn tooting. I've never been a horn tooter, kind of like toot my own horn kind of thing. I've always, I think very similar to you in that I want to understand something before I tell others about it. I want to know what I know before I pretend like I know everything. And, that reluctance, like you say, it's basically self-limiting.
It's so self-limiting.
As opposed to just sharing with people what I've learned rather than, thinking I have to have a whole, a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. I can just say, it's funny. I was talking with somebody and this is crazy. You should check this out. And just building some sort of enthusiasm and just kind of a narrative rather than feeling like I've got to ask for the check or I've got to go for the close right away. I love your analogy there about the garden. There is a lot to that. I think is whatever anyone's in, whether it be real estate, raising capital, or insurance or whatever. Rarely are you going to run into somebody that has millions of dollars and they just don't know what to do and they're just so glad you called. Oh my God. I've been waiting for somebody to call just like you, and I don't know you, and I don't know what you're doing, but I've got money, and I need to deploy it. Can you please help me?
With you, right? Only in your dreams, yeah. Only in your dreams.
Yeah, and like you said though, it's a process, and to understand that it's, this is kind of the journey. This is the direction I'm heading, and if you want, This is what I'm doing. This is who I'm talking to. If you'd like to, hear more, I'd love to share with you as I learn more. Even just that kind of an approach to it, I think is so valuable because not only are you, I see this with my kids too, is like when they're able to teach me something, I know they know it,
right.
Right. And that it cements that. And I think as somebody that's trying to, gain the credibility or the trust of others, the more that we engage in those conversations, the more we are, demonstrating that we know and we're enforcing those lessons we've learned.
Yeah. And it's, you're right. It's a conversation. It's engaging in a conversation. And the way I finally talk myself out of the fear of getting into this type of action is just that. It's an authentic conversation. It's okay to pose the questions and not necessarily have the answers yet. Again, it's revealing the process, talking about the challenges, inviting feedback from other people. I'm in this business since 2012, and we've only just started up our own meetup group. That is something that I would recommend people in their area do immediately, because you are inviting people into your circle to network and share information. So it's not always about you providing the answers. Maybe it's just about you providing questions and other people are giving you those answers. It's It's the conversation. So be willing to just be honest, authentic. It's okay that you don't know everything right away. None of us, again, I don't believe any one of us know everything there is to know on any particular topic. There is always room for growth and learning. So it's not about holding yourself out as the expert. It's about wanting to share the information and inviting other people to share as well. Once I made that connection in my mind, really, I was no longer operating in an uncomfortable zone anymore. Now it's just about having conversations with people, and how am I going to engage people? So what am I going to do? I'm going to start that meetup. I'm going to join other people's meetups. I'm going to join Facebook groups that are out there that are within my industry. Ask questions, add value, provide information when I have it, ask for information when I need it. It was just about getting out there, out from behind my computer, which is, where I was stuck for 3 to 4 years in the beginning of my business, not venturing outside of that, of that cubicle. And that's not going to help your business grow. I mean, I got really good at underwriting deals, but my business did not grow for those first couple of years at all.
Right. No, and I think, I think that saying "I've heard you're ready when you're ready" kind of thing holds true. A lot of this stuff, but I think that what you're saying though is so true. The more willing you are to get uncomfortable and jump in and get in front of people and have those conversations, not necessarily a sales
Right.
meeting, but just a conversation. And the other thing that occurred to me as you were talking about the meetups, I think the thing that I've come to recognize is just putting a time and a place on a calendar where others of like mind can gather. I mean, even if there's not a specific topic, there's some networking going on, and there's people in a room that are all of like mind, and that it's just like it's going to happen on this day and this time, and people can come and take part. I mean, obviously, it's better to, I think, if you have some sort of an agenda and stuff. But no, that's great.
The networking piece that you talk about is very important too, because that's, what I've again learned is you get no instantaneous results. Just like you said earlier on in our conversation about marketing, and that it takes consistent action over a long period of time. The networking piece is important because this business really is relationship building, and it is an organic. It really, for the most part, is organic. The relationships will grow over time. The more frequently you're engaging, the faster it will grow. But it is a process. So you can't, can't go out on day one of your deal and expect to form and forge these relationships that you need to close your deal 60 days later. An example is, we, for the first time, took down a larger deal this past December. It was our first over 100-unit deal. We had been living in that 50-unit space for a number of years, and we had to go. It was 174 units, and we knew we needed a partner for a lot of reasons, because as you get into the bigger deals, you're going to be lacking in something, whether it be net worth or liquidity, bringing enough investors to the table. And we ended up at an event in, I think it was Nashville, a networking event in Nashville that we went to, and we joined forces with, I want to say, a group that I met for the first time and spoke to. But what I didn't realize is my partner had been engaging in an online conversation with one of the principals of this group for months, and I had no idea. We met this group in person that weekend, and we shared a lot of great information, and we ended up talking about the deal with them. And then there was subsequent conversations when we were all back in our offices, and they ended up joining forces with us and helping us take the deal down. And I remember saying to Chris, wow, isn't this amazing? Like, we just met these guys and we were able to connect with them and attract them to the deal. And Chris Jackson, my partner, who's like, Krista, I have been talking to this principal for no less than 6 months, on Facebook, and in a Facebook community that I had joined 6 months ago. And I was like, oh, oh, okay. Like, of course that, it shame on me for thinking, you meet someone on a Friday and they're willing to sign on to a deal and raise $4 million for you on Monday.
Right, right. Well, and I think even more to that, I think the power of the social network kind of stuff, because I think, as we were talking a little bit before about the meetups and stuff, I tend to think of those as in person, and they're I have become a convert to social media. I was really hesitant to jump on. I just thought, why does anybody want to know what I'm doing, or on the Facebook and stuff, and the groups. And I'm familiar with Chris, and I think I may be familiar with the group that you're referring to. Um, the conversation that happens inside those groups is amazing from a standpoint of everybody's of like mind. So if you have something there and you bring it, or you're able to comment or add to somebody else's question or comment, I think that I've just gotten a tremendous amount of value out of being a part of those types of groups, and sharing, recognizing I'm not the only one going through something somebody else is, or the problems I'm running into, others have run into, and here's how they overcame them, or whatever.
Absolutely. And then, and of course, the logistical piece of being able to network with these people who are from all different parts of the country. I will never say that I don't think in-person networking is super important. And in fact, I think if you're really, working on nurturing specific relationships, there will be a time and a place that you guys should get on a plane and go to the physical meetup and meet these people in person. I mean, that's invaluable, to sit down, shake hands with someone, share a meal, and really get to know each other. But the social networking that enables you to start up the relationship with people in all different markets all across the country, I mean, that's huge. That's huge, to be able to do that. And then later on, of course, meeting them in person in the different networking events that go on throughout the country. But that has just proven to be invaluable as well.
No, that's great. Um, so let's look here. So we've talked about the one is marketing. We've talked about now networking. Um, are there additional challenges that you've run into that you would warn people against?
Well, I'm going to say the idea of getting systemized with your marketing and being consistent with any action steps that you're taking is challenging. And I think systems in general, setting up your systems, whether it be for your micro business, which is what I worked really hard on for a long time, or the macro, that's really important, because going to these meetings or networking with people, but not systemizing, and getting their information into a data system and being able to follow up. And I mean follow up genuinely too. This is, for me, it's not just about, all right, collecting cards and getting them into the system and then a generic email going out to people saying, hey, it was great meeting you. I mean, getting people into a system and, we now put people into our system, and then we write notes up on, what was it that we discussed with this person, and how could we add value for them, and where do we think, is there potential for us doing business together. I mean, we have detailed notes now, so that when we do follow up, I mean, there's a genuine follow up that's happening, and not something artificial. But whatever the system is, it's about getting systemized with collecting that information and organizing it and following up on it in a systemized and consistent way. Again, the action steps that you take, the systems that you choose to implement can be very varied, amongst different groups of people, but it's about putting the system in place, taking the action steps, and then doing that consistently, day in and day out. Not, following up, not doing something one week and then forgetting to do it for an entire month. Oh, and then getting back to it again the next month. It's got to be consistent steps, baby steps. They don't have to be big leaps, but the consistency is really important.
No, I love that you bring that up, because I think that in marketing, the more I've studied marketing, the more I understand the how many results are actually in the follow up. versus how many people quit. Like they'll have that meeting, like, God, it was such a great meeting. And then whether they follow up or they don't, they only follow up once. Whereas I know, like in insurance, I think that the number of touches that they say it takes to make sales north of 12, kind of thing. So that's not going to happen just in a Friday, Monday kind of thing. You've got to stay in front of somebody for a while.
Right, right.
And that's great. So can you share with us, you mentioned you guys have systems. Are you guys spreadsheeting this? Do you have like some sort of a CRM, or how do you guys manage your?
I mean, right now it's pretty rudimentary, and it's something that we have to get more formalized. But right now we do a lot of document creation on Google Docs because
I
we're
love
able to
Google.
share that. Yeah, we're pretty big fans of that. My partner is actually a tech partner. He's a techie. He's a partner in a tech business. So he knows a lot of the products out there and what we could do to be more efficient. Right now, we are utilizing the Google Docs, and I think at some point that's going to be converted into a system that I will defer to him on that because he's looking into it. But I guess my point being, it doesn't have to be the most sophisticated thing out there. Anything is better than nothing in the beginning, and as long as you have something that you can utilize on a regular basis that makes sense. We've created something that makes sense and is shareable instantaneously and live. And we really borrowed that from the micro business. We were using Google Docs when it came to deal tracking, communication with brokers, communication with management companies, and then we decided to start utilizing Google Docs for all of the networking we were doing with potential partners, investors, and ultimately, if that gets transformed into something more sophisticated, I'll leave that up to Chris. But it's working for us right now.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to get all caught up in the brand or the system or whatever. But I think that like fundamentally it's just a system. So
A
whether it mean
system.
that you have a process and you met them and you send them a thank you, and then a month later you send them a hey, whatever that is, that process is that you follow that process. I think that because I think one of the things that I've come to recognize with marketing, especially with online marketing, is in all these web forms and landing pages and drips and all that kind of stuff. It's many times it's less than personal, and you can get caught up in all the you know uh, capturing information, but not necessarily the relationship. And I would say that this specifically, when you're trying to raise millions of dollars, it's not about clicks. It's more about conversations.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's so true. And one of the things that you said earlier, like statistically, you just like spat out a statistic about in the insurance industry. You said, a result you need to have at least 12 touches. Chris is really up on a lot of that information too. People have studied marketing, right? I mean, it's a major in college. You can study all of this. I am truly a newbie at this, and I have no um, background or history about marketing or what you need to do. So for me, what I bring to the table, Chris knows a lot of the statistical stuff, and I'm just bringing like gut instinct to the table, what feels right, what feels authentic. Someone tells me you need 12 touches, and I'm like, okay, but instinctually for me, if it's only 6 touches, but every single one was an authentic action step, maybe I'm only going to have 6 touches. So it's just, I think there's a lot of what you just said is like, don't get too caught up in all of that. And I completely agree with you because I think the most successful people when they're marketing are those people that are being authentic when they're taking their action steps. So if you get too caught up in, what you need to do, I need to touch this person 12 times. So let me send them a monthly email. That's a pretty empty shell of an email. It's just a, hey, how you doing email. I feel like you're wasting your time.
yeah, no, and I think all of it needs to be prefaced by something of value.
Yeah.
If you're not bringing value, don't bother. And I think people will tune out really really quick
Really quick. Yep.
if that's what you're doing. So that's awesome. So systems, you mentioned that you're not necessarily as attuned as maybe Chris is on the touches and stuff. But I'm kind of curious, with the experience that you have had, um, has it been more of kind of a one-on-one, or has it been emails? Has it been telephone calls? What have you found to be, um, your process that you've on the money you've raised or the connections you've made?
You mean where do I see improvement happening, and in what method of communication?
Yeah,
Where's my
yeah,
successes?
as far as just I'm assuming there's does it get more personal as it gets more serious? I mean, is it, or do you cement the relationship? Have you found more success cementing the relationship up front with that personal, or is it something that, because I'm assuming that eventually before somebody's going to release money, they're going to want to say, that they feel like, they know you, kind of thing.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to say I don't have a I don't have a system to the extent, make sure that you're on the phone with this person,
No,
by,
no, no, and I didn't mean like
yeah,
that, like,
yeah.
that, but I was just kind of curious more of like, if you could just think of one person recently that you've, you know, raised some money from, and what your relationship, how it's evolved, kind of thing. I was curious if that might be a.
Well, I actually recently have noticed more success in raising interest. If we're going to talk about money, the rate, the money part, the capital raise, um, much more interest with people that I never thought would ever be interested. And so here's a piece I can share. The idea of prejudging the network of people that you're meeting, whether they're people that have always been in your world or people that you're meeting along the way, and making judgments as to who eventually may invest with you is a big mistake. And I, in the past, have not been willing, or have been very picking those people and sharing information with them about me and my business, instead of being willing to put myself out there in front of everyone, and then waiting to see and letting them make the decision whether they're interested. I'll give you an example, something I've done very recently. Talk about being out of my comfort zone. My partner had to coach me on this for months before I was willing to do it. And I felt like I was crossing a line, but I eventually did it. And it's not something I do consistently, but I do it. I shouldn't say I don't do it consistently. I do it consistently, but in very specific points of time. And that is this. This is going to be like no big deal for most people. It was a big deal for me. Using my personal Facebook, which I thought was sacred, and it's my personal world. It's my family and friends who I don't want to talk business with, right? That was a prejudgment that I made, that I shouldn't be talking business with those people in my life. They're just, those are just my personal contacts. And for the first time, I used my Facebook to post on very specific occasions for very specific reasons. It's not like I'm bombarding my personal storyline with business posts, but very targeted, purposeful posts. And I was shocked and surprised, pleasantly surprised, how many people in my world that have been there for a long time have reached out to me since then, having not a clue what I've done, what I've been doing the last few years, and have been interested in learning more. Some of them as investors, some of them surprisingly want to get into the real estate investment business, and were thrilled to find out that I started up a meetup where newbies can go and start learning and networking. And I was so thrilled because, but so surprised at that one little move that I made and the reaction that I got. And again, it's not something that I'm just going to, use that now as a business posting forum. I don't think that's appropriate. But the self-limiting ideas I had about utilizing that social forum, even sporadically, to get myself in front of people that I had prejudged would not be interested, was a big mistake. A big mistake that I've learned from, and I share it. Don't be afraid, and don't prejudge. Again, the people you're meeting now, as well as the people you've known for the past 30 years. It was a huge move for me. It was huge, but I did it, and big results have come from that.
No, I think that you mentioned on kind of a targeted, focused post as opposed to constantly bombarding your personal site with, um, ad nauseum about
Business.
details and stuff. Yeah,
Right.
and I've made the mistake of doing the reverse. I've gone, full blast, real estate, and kind of lost some of that personal touch at times, kind of thing. So I think there's a balance,
Yes.
but I think the other thing too is that, um, I know I'm not alone, and I'm assuming you're not alone as well, as having made a post and going, I wish I hadn't done that, or taking that back, or
Oh, I think
uh,
you can delete your posts though, can't you?
well, you can, but even though I've always been like, shoot, what I've made a comment on something like that was get rid of that. So
And the other thing, actually, there's another thing that just came up in my mind that I would like to add to that. When you're saying, what are you doing differently that you're seeing some results, right?
mhm.
That you're doing differently now that you never did before. I make the effort now more than I ever have before. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you've had people reach out to you either through LinkedIn or a Facebook group or whatever, and someone wants to immediately set up a phone call. And there have been times based on maybe previous posts that they've made, or maybe because they haven't made any posts at all, and it's just a stranger in a group that now wants to reach out and have a quick phone call with you. I have often dismissed it and not done it. Either not responded, or for whatever reason, it, I didn't follow up with it and make the decision to have that conversation. I will tell you, as busy as we all are, make the effort and have that initial phone conversation. Don't prejudge. Don't think I can't add value for this person can add value. Because there's been many a times where, based on the background of the person, I've said, there's nothing that I could talk to this person about. I can't give them any value. We're in two different worlds, or again, prejudging, and I didn't make the time to have the phone call. Now, if you reach out to me and you want to have a phone call, I will make the time for that. You can make time in your day for a 5-minute phone call, or in your week. And you can do that as many number of times as it comes up. Some of those times, those phone calls will go nowhere, and you realize after the conversation, maybe that prejudgment was accurate. But man, oh man, there's been plenty of conversations where I made that time, and that phone call has led to something, whether it may be helping them helping me, or just realizing, oh, this is a relationship that I should continue to work on, because I feel like there's something there. So make the darn phone call. 5 minutes of your day is not a lot to give up, and don't prejudge. Do not prejudge.
And Krista, to that, I want to thank you for responding to my post to you. I think it's
There you go.
I think it's how we got here.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you
Funny.
just reached out to me in an instant message right on Facebook.
Yeah, there's something about a property you guys had acquired. I think it might have been that 174.
4-unit, yes.
Yeah, no,
Exactly.
but that's great.
Oh, perfect example. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Krista, I just want to be respectful of your time here.
Yes.
So were there any other items you wanted to touch on as far as stepping out of, or mistakes to avoid?
Isn't that enough for one?
No. I
Isn't
just want to make sure.
enough learning lessons?
No, this is great. I mean, I love it. We've
Kidding.
got the marketing, networking, systems, and again, uh, not closing yourself off to opportunities is kind of what I took from
Yeah.
that there. Um, I wanted to shift gears and just ask you a question. Like I've shared with you, I'm an insurance broker by day, and there's a risk management is kind of one of the focal points of what we do, and there's essentially 3 different strategies we employ, and it's either avoid the risk, minimize the risk, or transfer the risk, which is essentially what insurance is. And so I've been asking my guests as of late, and would like to ask you if you could identify what you see as the biggest risk. And I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance related answer. If you've got an insurance answer, that's fine. But as a global question with respects to investing in real estate, and what we've talked about today. What do you see as the biggest risk?
I have a micro and macro, and I'll speak quickly because I know we're limited on time. So there's two things that have just, in my world, I'm becoming very sensitive to. One's actually insurance related. The micro issue is an insurance related issue, and it's the spike in insurance premiums due to crime. I don't know what's happening. You would be able to speak to it more than I can, being that that's your industry, but for whatever reason, I feel like insurance companies are taking more notice of that particular item, and the crime in the area. And just to focus on and give some context, most of my deals are in Atlanta, and the Atlanta crime rates, I think have been a significant issue and a risk factor for as long as I've been in that market, and surely before. But for some reason now, I see it across the board on all of my deals. The insurance premiums are spiking, and the brokers are constantly talking to us about crime being the reason for it. So that's not the biggest, that's not my micro risk that we're very sensitive to, and we just have to be aware of it. And we're paying now more attention to crime not only on the property, but in the surrounding areas. We now research other buildings, that if we're bidding on a property, we research the feedback on all the other buildings too. Because we could rehab a particular property, but what's going on the neighbor's property, it's going to affect you. So we are much more sensitive to that particular issue. On a macro level, and I'm sure a lot of your guests are talking about, preparing for the next recession, whether it looks like a recession, a crash, or is it just an adjustment in the market? And that's coming. I feel that that's coming within the next 2 years. We do 3 specific things now in preparation for what inevitably is coming. One, we are battle testing our underwriting in a much more significant way. We've started to do a lot of research. We're not there yet in getting all the answers, but we're really starting to dig deeply in the market that we're in and look at where were the rents during that last crash. We're battle testing our underwriting to the extent that we're now looking at our underwriting and saying, okay, let's say it crashes in the next 2 years. And bringing down the rents significantly, maybe not to what the last crash was, because I don't think whatever's coming is going to be that significant, but literally bringing down the rents to the point where, as long as we can still make can we still make our debt? Like, we're at the point where we are, second thing, we're locking into long-term loans. So if we have to go through a period of time where maybe the investors aren't getting returns, or substantially decreased returns, we're willing to accept that as the reality, but because we're in a long-term hold, and we'll come out of that, and we'll come out on top. But we've never done our underwriting prior to now where we were stressing the deals that much, like looking to see, do we still, if we put it this way, prior to this type of underwriting, if the deal looked that bad with lowering the rents, we took a pass. I don't want to just make our debt payments. I want to be able to return 9 to 10% during the hold period and double digits after sale. But now we're willing to accept less, and we're educating our investors on it as well. I mean, it's really important to just educate them and set the expectations that there could be deals that you have to hold on longer than you anticipate to ride out the adjustments that are inevitably occurring. So we're battle testing our underwriting. We are not going into tertiary markets right now. 2-3 years ago, we were much more willing to bid on properties, and in fact, we did bid in tertiary markets. Now, it's about staying in those primary markets. I mean, right now, we've doubled down in Atlanta. We feel very comfortable there. Sure, the price points are high, cap rates are compressed, competition stiff, but we also love the Atlanta market for the wealth of industry there. And what I mean by wealth is the diversity of industry in that market, the continued population growth, the continued expansion of the industries that have been there. It is that hedge that we feel we need to help sustain us when we will be riding out the storm that's inevitably coming. And the third thing that we're doing, while most of our deals we're looking to place long-term debt, try to lock in for the best rate, we would not necessarily resist a deal that needed a bridge. But it needs to be a bridge where, minimum 3 years with the option to extend at least another, 2 to 3 years. Because you do not want to be in a situation in year 2 to 3 from now when the crash happens and then we have to do the refi. So a bridge is fine as long as you do have the ability to extend out so that you can, make sure that your deal obviously can sustain the interest rate that you're paying on the bridge. But assuming this is happening, I'm going to say 2 years out from now, you want to be able to hold on to that bridge and refi after that crash. So we haven't seen a bridge deal yet that we need one, but we would not be adverse to a bridge as long as we can get those terms.
No, I love it. That's, again, a lot of foresight and, kind of aware of what's coming. And it sounds like you guys are taking a lot of steps to, make sure that you are not a victim of whatever's coming. But, like you said, staying out of the tertiary markets, battle testing your underwriting, long-term loans. I think that's one I keep hearing as well.
Right.
And like I said, the ability to have the extensions on your bridge funding, that's great. And it just, as far as the crime goes, I know I've seen that in various cities and neighborhoods that has become an issue. And I know there's statistics you can get. I know that there's violent crime and then there's property crime, and I think that understanding which is which. Although the insurance companies, I don't think they really care. I think they think is crime is crime. If it's a stereo stolen out of a car, they look at it as could have been their building.
And it's just the piece about the insurance that is interesting to me is we've seen there's lots of reports out there that you can tap into. You have to take the reporting in context, but we place a lot of importance on the feedback from the people in the field, which is our management company. One of our deals, if we had only relied on the reporting, we would have never ever bid on the deal because the reporting about the crime statistics in that area were pretty scary. We went after the deal anyway. It's been a great success for us. It's a Cardinal property. We're doing wonderfully on it. And that was because we really hedged and relied on our management feedback. So you really need to, understand the statistical reports out there, but obviously there's more than that, just that to rely on. But what you just said is right. The insurance companies don't care about your management feedback in the area. And so what we're seeing, and it's inevitable, we have to underwrite it as it's happening. The insurance premiums are going up. I'm paying way more for insurance now on the same size deal that I paid 4 years ago.
Right.
It is what it is. Now, I know you have buying power when you have more units, maybe. Again, you can probably speak better to that. Will I get better rates when I have 1,000 units under my belt as opposed to the 230 that I have right now? Maybe. But right now, it's just a reality that we're dealing with, and we've got to underwrite with those higher premiums.
Right. No, and there is a little bit of leverage you gain as you have, more in kind of a dispersion of the risk, as opposed to all being in one property there. So
right.
That should work to your favor.
Yes.
Krista, I need to, or I've got, we need to wrap this up here.
Yep.
Before we do, where can listeners go if they would like to learn more or connect with you?
Sure. Our website is www.sharplineequity.com. You can email me at Krista, Krista, @sharplineequity.com. If you Google, and also our meetup, if you Google multifamily apartment investing unveiled, you will also find our meetup group online. So those are the different ways you can reach out to us. Got it.
Krista, I want to say thanks for taking the time. I've learned a lot and look forward to doing it again soon.
Thank you so much. It was a great fun. Thanks.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.